And Vladimir Putin keeping up the pressure, now ordering his army to drive out Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region. The Russian military claims it has recaptured much of the area, and all of this comes ahead of peace talks tomorrow. U.S. officials are trying to convince Russia to accept a 30-day ceasefire, which Ukraine agreed to earlier this week.
That's been stubborn so far, right in the early going. Coming over here, the map will show you, okay, this is Ukraine. Everything in red, Russia occupies. Everything in blue is a Ukrainian counteroffensive. The area you talked about, Dana, is Kursk. It's just a bit of spit of an area up here in the northeastern part of the country. Let's put the map in motion, okay? 6 months ago, this is what the Ukrainian military did. They went into Russia, and fairly effectively, too. Everything in the blue dotted line is what the Ukrainians had captured, all right? That was 6 months ago in September of 2024, and now you come the counteroffensive on behalf of the Russian army. They came in from the north, okay, back on March 5th. They came in from the east as well, and they've retaken a lot of that territory. As of today, March 11th, everything you see in blue is what the Ukrainians still occupy. Sudza is a population, just to give you an idea here, these are villages, all right? They move from village to village, whether it's the Ukrainian military or the Russian military. Sudza is the largest town in the Kursk area of contention, population 6,000. So it's not a ton of people now that are living in that area. I mentioned everything in blue is what the Ukrainians have recaptured. Everything in red is what Russia holds today. And what is the comparison for that geography? If you were to take this area and transpose it here in the United States, some of our biggest states like California, Texas, Florida, throw in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and New York, those 7 states are the equivalent of the area that the Russian military has occupied. So somewhat impressive, but impressive too that the Ukrainians have held on to what they have thus far.
Guys, Russia is making major moves in Ukraine right now, rejecting ceasefire talks and pushing deeper into contested territory. Meanwhile, President Trump is stepping up, trying to broker peace, something that Biden failed to do. But is Russia even serious about negotiations, or is this just another power play by Putin? Retired General Jack Keane breaks it all down, and trust me, guys, you don't want to miss his insight. Stay tuned.
So Russia says no to the ceasefire offer. They want to recapture the area I just described over there. Where are we now?
Well, first, I do think they'll recapture that area. As you indicated, think of this. No one has occupied Russian territory since Hitler and the Germans in World War II. They've occupied this territory for 6 months. They brought in North Koreans, 10,000 plus strong, to retake that territory, and it took all of this time. That's why if you put up last year's map of that area in red right there, it would look relatively the same. They made some marginal tactical gains, but what they really wanted to do is make operational gains to take them all the way down into Odessa, capture Odessa, and go further into Ukraine to the west than what you see on that map. None of that has been accomplished. Russia has a lot more challenges than their narrative would suggest. Their narrative is we're on the offense, Ukraine's on the defense, therefore they're losing. Not surprised that they push back on a ceasefire. I'm not convinced yet that Russia is serious about making major concessions and willing to compromise to get to a peace agreement. I think that really remains to be seen.
And so what do you think President Trump's next move would be then, to pressure them more? I mean, he's threatened there could be more pressure on Russia, perhaps giving Ukraine more weapons if they need them?
Yeah, well, that's an excellent point. People talk about the ball's in Russia's court. It's as much in President Trump's court as it is. Look, we punished Ukraine for not being willing to take a ceasefire. Remember, Zelensky wanted conditions first, security conditions, before he would agree to a ceasefire. And we took our weapons away from him and our intelligence. I think we should do much the same to Russia. They're not going into the ceasefire deal. The administration is talking about sanctions. I believe Trump's sanctions would be tougher than Biden's sanctions. But look, Russia has always manipulated sanctions. They normally take a while to take effect. What Putin pays more attention to is the battlefield. And your suggestion, I believe, is the right one. And that is increase the weapons, air defense systems, protect the people in those cities, long-range fires, and help strengthen Ukraine's defense. Give them mines and other things that they need. The administration's got a list of what all that is.
I'm able to do that. Here's Marco Rubio. He was the one in Saudi Arabia. Watch him in Ireland yesterday.
We're going to bring it to them directly. We're going to say that Ukraine is prepared to stop all battlefield activity and begin the immediate process of negotiating an enduring end to the war. And we'll see what their response is. If their response is yes, then we know we've made real progress and there's a real chance of peace. If their response is no, it would be highly unfortunate, and it would make their intentions clear.
So that's kind of old news at the moment here, given the news out of Moscow. I think what you told Dana and me 3 weeks ago is something we have to revisit here. There are all these questions about why the Americans are going to Saudi Arabia and meeting with the Russians without the Ukrainians and without any European partners. And you came on TV and you said, you have to determine whether or not the Russians are serious about a ceasefire and peace. And you can't do that on the phone. You have to do it in person. And you just said again that you're not convinced they are at that point yet. Correct?
Yeah, well, the Russians are really experts at gaming us and manipulating us. And certainly Zelensky, well, it was uncalled for him to lecture the president about this in front of the international and American media. The point is well taken. I mean, they've blown off 25 ceasefires, as he indicated, not only in Ukraine, but in Syria. And usually when he accepts the ceasefire, what do? They rearm, but they also reposition, which is usually in violation of any ceasefire. So the Russians are gaming us a little bit here, and let's see whether they're really serious about this or not. Remains to be seen.
Okay.
We have heard from Moscow, but not from Putin directly. And he took a trip today in his camo. He wanted to be seen, wanted to be visible. Does that give you, based on your knowledge of his operational style, does that tell you anything about his intentions?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, he's using this as leverage. This is his first visit to this Ukraine-occupied territory. Obviously, he's in the Russian piece of it. He knows he's going to get international coverage of that visit. He's getting it, and he wants to use this as leverage going into the ceasefire negotiations.
General, thank you so much. Yeah. Great to see you in
Great
person.
being here.
Okay, guys, let's break this down. Russia is moving aggressively in Ukraine, recapturing key areas in the Kursk region. Putin outright rejected the ceasefire proposal. Was this ever even a real negotiation, or was this, like they just said, a stalling tactic? U.S. officials are scrambling right now to convince Russia to agree. But history shows Russia rarely follows through on ceasefires. Trump is stepping in where Biden wasn't effective, trying to broker a real peace deal. The media is going to try to spin this, guys. But should the U.S. be applying more pressure on Russia, like General Keane suggests? If Trump would have been in office over the last 4 years, would this war even have happened? And if it had, would we already have resolved it by now? Putin is using this as leverage, though, guys. His visit to occupied Ukrainian territory was a clear show of power. But look at him bringing in the 10,000 North Korean troops to fight. That right there is a sign of desperation, not dominance. General Keane pointed out that Russia has failed to make real strategic gains. They wanted to take Odessa. They wanted to push westward. None of that has happened. The U.S. punished Ukraine when Zelensky refused an earlier ceasefire. Should we now punish Russia for rejecting this one? General Keane suggests that strengthening Ukraine's defenses, just bring it back to you guys. Should we be sending more weapons, or should we be focusing on pressuring Russia economically? General Keane, of course, was siding with the idea of giving Ukraine more defenses. What do you think, guys? Put it down in the comments. Is Putin bluffing here? Does Russia truly, is their intention really to conquer more Ukrainian land? Should Trump be leading these negotiations? Let me know down in the comments what you think about all this. And guys, if you want to support the channel and get exclusive content, consider becoming a member. Your support helps us keep bringing the truth, guys. We couldn't do without you. Appreciate it, everyone. I'll catch you later with another update.